These are 5 deliciously complex bourbons for you to add to your collection. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So when it comes to adding whiskey or bourbon to your collection, one of the things we tend to all be looking for is nice, complex pours. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes you're in the mood for a nice, simple sipper. You just want something that's going to give you those brown sugars, those vanillas, and give you an easy ride. But as you get into it more and as you add to your collection and as you dive into expanding your palate, all that stuff, you tend to look for stuff that has great complexity. That way you can sit with the pour for 30 minutes, break it down, really enjoy it, maybe talk about it with your friends who drink bourbon too. That's just one of the most beautiful aspects of the whiskey and bourbon world. Complexity is a mark of a great whiskey. It's a mark of an interesting whiskey, keeps you on your toes, and that's why we want them in our collection. So I put together a list of 5 bourbons that I think are very complex, give you lots of different flavor notes, and will keep you interested as you sip on them. So let's dive into the list. The first one on the list is one of the more standard pours that you can get on this list, but I wanted to add some stuff that's very readily available but has great complexity. So the first one is regular old Buffalo Trace. So that's right. I think that in terms of a $25 to $30 pour that's going to offer you a lot of different flavor notes, you can't go wrong with Buffalo Trace. That's because you're tending to get something around 8 years old of age on this, which means you get some oak, you get brown sugar, you get vanilla, all that stuff drawn out from the barrel. But then Buffalo Trace tends to have more fruit notes than a lot of other standard profiles. So you'll get maybe a little bit of apple, definitely some cherry. If you ask me, there's a strong cherry note here, and maybe even a little bit of a grapey note. You could argue there's some honey in there as well. So some of those lighter, bright fruit notes, and then your darker barrel notes definitely go into making Buffalo Trace what it is. And there's a reason a lot of people love this as one of the best $25 to $30 sippers. Okay, so bottle number 2 is the new kid on the block, but since I opened this one up, I've just been surprised by how much there is in this particular bottle, and that is Bardstown Bourbon Company's High Wheat Mash Bill. So this is part of their Origin series. They've done a very high wheat presence here in this mash bill. It is 53% corn and 39% wheat. The proof point is 106 proof, so you're right in a nice range to give you a lot of punch and a lot of flavor. For me, there's kind of a citrusy element here for sure. There's good vanilla. There's just kind of wheat wrapping around this thing. Good spice too. Even though it's a softer wheated profile, it offers spice. A little bit of age, it's 6 years old. So honestly, you could pick up a lot of different notes on this one, especially those citrus pops that really come through. That's great. So for around $50, this is, again, one of those more complex pours. Should be hitting more and more shelves. It's a newer release, but this should be relatively widely available, and I think is arguably the best of the Origin series. I have to do another comparison of all of them because I haven't done that in a while, especially since I picked this one up, but it's very nice and very complex for what it is. All right, bottle number 3 is not going to be a surprise when you think about what goes into this bottle and what makes it what it is, and that is Chattanooga Bottled in Bond. So they do some crazy experimenting here, Chattanooga does, with their Bottled in Bond releases. This is the fall 2018. It's at least, I think, 4 different kind of mash bills combined together to make this thing possible. It's got a roasty, toasty note, some darker fruits for sure, strong vanilla. It's kind of all over the place, especially that roasty, toasty experience really comes in and kind of weaves throughout this sip. I have another 2 bottles of the Bottled in Bond that were different releases. I think one from 2017, maybe one from 2019. And they're equally complex. They're kind of always experimenting with this line, so you never know exactly what you're going to get, but you know you're going to get something that's going to give you kind of a wild ride, and that is a ton of fun. Okay, so bottle number 4 is from one of the best blending operations on the market, which is why it's no surprise that they bring the complexity in spades, and that is barrel, batch 36. So I've got 36 here, but honestly, chalk it up. Any barrel product is going to have good complexity. They're almost always mixing different things, blending them together, different mash bills, different whiskeys, putting different finishes on them to make them more interesting and unique. Or in the case of their batched bourbons, they're taking, like this one is a mix of a 9-year-old Kentucky, 7.5, 8 and 10-year-old Indiana, and 8 and 15-year-old Tennessee whiskey. So we're talking about some good age, some good variety in the ages. For me, this one has some citrus pop. It's got some really good spice. It's got almost a creamsicle experience with orange and vanilla at times. Just kind of goes all over the place. You could get some darker oak notes on this one as well. So it just takes you for a ride, and it tends to be that barrel does that. So for a little bit more money on these ones, usually around 90 bucks, we're talking about something that kind of justifies that by being much more complex than a lot of other offerings on the market. Okay, so last but not least on my list, bottle number 5 is one of the more unique offerings from a major distillery, and that's why it brings so much interesting complexity, and that is Bambergers. So this is 2024 edition of Bambergers from Michter's. This is one of their more experimental lines along with Shanks. I picked Bambergers just because I think this particular batch of 2024, it's 108 proof, tends to really have a lot of different notes. They put chinkapin oak as part of the finishing process or aging process here. So that really gives it this spicy, interesting, some dark chocolate notes, but then it's got lots of fruits and it just kind of goes all over the place. There's some aged elements in there as well. This one in particular screams to me, ooh, complexity. This is a thinker of a bourbon. I've really enjoyed sipping on it so far, and I plan to put this in my Whiskey of the Year bracket. I'm very interested to see how it holds up. Sometimes complexity doesn't shine through the best in blinds. That's why I would recommend if you get any of these, I do think they're worth just sitting down with all on their own and tasting through and spending a good half an hour really enjoying this pour, because that's what the complexity of these kind of whiskeys is really for. I think it's for enjoying it, picking it apart, learning the art of kind of slowly developing your palate and understanding what you're sipping on. So if you got any of these 5, I think you would have a pour that would keep you interested and offer a lot of different complex notes. Anything from, you can get that in a $25 to $30 bottle, or you could spend up to the Bambergers that cost you more like $120, $130. So complexity is offered across the range of prices, but any of these 5 is going to offer it to you, and you're going to have a lot of fun sipping on them. Hope this video is helpful, everybody. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this list, and also would just be interested in knowing what are some of the more complex bourbons that you've been sipping on lately, and what do you enjoy about them. While you're at it, hit the like button on this video. That gets it out to the most people, and then if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Bourbon Hutch, joining us for the rest of 2024 and well beyond. All right, everybody, till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey. Hopefully it's nice and complex, and cheers.